Welcome to Ballsy, the podcast where I interview successful artists and creators on how they got the balls to sell their art and turn their practice into a profitable business. As a former entrepreneur turned artist, I realized that being an artist is basically like running a small startup. And you, the artist, are the CEO. I talk to artists about their businesses, talk real numbers, growth hacks, tools and tricks, and how they were ballsy enough to make that their career. Okay, so welcome. So today on Ballsy, we have someone who's definitely had the balls to start selling his art. Marcus Aitken resides in London. In London?
Yeah, South London.
South London, okay. Welcome to the pod. So first, as I usually like to start out, just so people have some kind of points of reference, let's talk briefly about your style of work and kind of what kind of work you make, and then we'll dive into the business stuff thereafter.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. But I am a gestural abstract artist. The works I'm making mostly on raw canvas at the moment. And the work's very intuitive, and I let my sort of guide me. And I don't plan paintings too much. I just let it happen. So that's what I'm doing.
I love you have a very specific abstract style. There's a lot of energy to it. I think really cool colored selections. Definitely worth taking a look. For those who want to keep up with looking at the art while we're chatting, what is the Instagram? That's the easiest way to kind of see it?
Yeah, so just Marcus Aitken _ and that's I keep stuff as most artists do, update on kind of what I'm doing, different projects. So yeah, it's definitely the best place to see it. I also have a newsletter as well, which you can get through on my website.
Oh, awesome. Actually, I've just signed up, so I look forward to reading it.
I saw that come through. Thank you.
So usually the way I start these things, and it's the part that fascinates me the most, as we were talking about earlier, I'm a big believer. Everyone has this kind of vision and illusion of an artist. But at the end of the day, artists are business people, right? You have to, to go pro, you have to actually sell this stuff. And so the first thing I usually ask artists is, one, what did you do before you went pro? Most people start art as a side hustle somewhere, and somewhere along the lines, you're like, I think I can pull this off. And so what was that series of events in your life that kind of got you into art full time?
Yeah, I've done so many random jobs like every artist. I'm just thinking, do you know what? It actually started when I was really young. So when I don't even know, I guess in terms of like thinking of my art and selling art as like a actual business opportunity, I think I was like, I don't even know, 15 or something like that. And in the summer holidays, I was very bored and I enjoyed painting. So I started doing these like pop art portraits of my friends. And then I was selling these terrible portraits back to their parents. So I guess that's when it started for me. But yeah, I guess
that is the best hustle I've ever heard.
yeah, it was good. It was good. Hopefully no one ever sees these portraits again, because one, they're nothing like what I do now, and two, they're absolutely terrible, I'm sure. But yeah, I guess like my journey, like most artists, I went to art school, I graduated, and then entered into the real big bad world and thought, what now? And then started working in a frozen yogurt shop. Awesome.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I don't know. I did lots of things, loads of random jobs. Like I was a laborer on a building site. That was not a great job.
Were you making art while you were doing this, or were you just like you're doing it personally?
Yeah. So basically straight out of uni, I started a jewelry company because it was based at the time. I was making sculptures and it was based on the sculptures. And I thought, like, how can I monetize this, but still be creative and make something that is like tangible to what I was doing at uni? And I loved the creating side of it. But then I realized very quickly, I hated the fashion world and it wasn't very creative, I found. So I stopped doing that. And yeah, I don't know. I was doing kind of various different creative things all whilst doing all these different random jobs. So I've always had a creative project on the go, but at that point I was making no money. To be honest, I was losing money just buying materials because no one was buying my work then.
So you're now making work. Did you find this particular style then, or were you still in your search for it phase?
No, yeah, not at all. I think, so after leaving, I was creating sculptures. Then I went into a bit of like set design stuff with these sculptures. Quickly realized that to have the studio space in London is very expensive, especially if you are making sculptures. And I quickly realized that I don't know if I can keep this up. And also it's just the space you need. I wouldn't be able to find it. So I kind of just started thinking about working flat again. And the colors that I was using at the time for the sculptures, they're like these high gloss pink sculptures and greens and stuff. Those colors are still concurrent in my practice now and what I'm doing, which is nice because it's for me, I can always see a nod back to where I started, although I was creating something entirely different. So yeah, there's definitely like ties to where it began to where I am now. But in terms of the actual paintings themselves, they've really changed. It's always been abstract, but the style has changed quite a lot. So I used to paint in oils, and it was mostly, I went through my blue period where I was kind of like purely painting in blue, which I don't do at all now. I don't really use much blue. And then it morphed into the colors that I was using back then for the sculptures. And I think my style, it's still developing now, as every artist does, but I think it's in the last few years more fixed, I would say.
Now, so you now stumble into this new style.
Yeah.
At some point, I assume it started like, how did you know that like this was, I assume like some of it is the market telling you that it's all like people started buying your work. What did that progression look like? And at what point did you realize you could stop working at the frozen yogurt place and start doing art?
So it's an interesting story. So at the time I was working for an art consultancy. So I've always tried to get jobs within the arts, which is very difficult. I'm sure most artists will try to do that out of uni because you want to have your ear to the ground and understand what's happening in the art world. Luckily, I got a job as an art consultant putting together curations for mostly kind of corporate companies. And at the time, I was selling various different artists' work to a number of different companies in the city of London. And with my boss's permission, I said to him that, look, I'm painting. I've started doing this for the past year or so. I've picked it up again and I'd love to sell my work through the company, but obviously I can't sell my own work to the clients. So with his permission, I created a pseudonym of Max Perry.
Okay.
So along with the other artists, I was basically pitching my own work to these clients face to face without them knowing that these works were me.
They were so awkward at times.
Yeah, it was, but it was great because no other artist gets the opportunity. I'm sure some do in some ways to get brutal, honest, face-to-face feedback from people, because a lot of the time, I'm sure you can relate, people will say to you, ask you about your work, and more often than not, they'll be like, yeah, it's so great, I love it. And they won't give any kind of brutal, very honest feedback. So that was really useful for me. And it was great because
I always say there's nothing worse than it's nice.
Yeah.
Right? I'd rather love it or hate it. Like I struck some sort of emotional chord, but it's nice. Like it doesn't do it for me.
Exactly.
It's not, work isn't pushing someone far enough is usually the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's one way I always tell if something like I post a reel or whatever, or like an image on Instagram, which goes out to the wide world or whatever. And I always know if something's doing well because I'll start getting a few comments which people are like, "This is terrible" or whatever, and I'm like, I'm really happy that it's reached you.
So you're now selling as a pseudonym. You're selling, and did your work actually sell, or did you?
It did, yeah.
Did you push it more than everybody else?
No, I didn't. I wait for the right things. I didn't want to be greedy, and it was for the right kind of spaces and stuff. But yeah, it did sell, and I actually still work with the same company, but now as my name, Marcus Aitken. And
what was your price point when you started?
With that, because it was not too far off where I am now with my price points, because it's rented art curations in the city and they're exclusive to the company, it's a separate thing in its own. So there was a bit more of a premium on those prices purely because they were rental artworks. So I could get those artworks back after 6 months and they wouldn't pay the full price as if you bought it, for instance.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And as a framework, just give me a range just so I have an idea of what we're looking at. Are we talking like
anything from I'd say like the most expensive work was like £5,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's good.
Yeah. No, it's good. If I sell one of those these days, it's great. It's a good day.
And so from that, at what point did you decide? Was there like a light bulb moment that went off and you're like, I'm making enough to do this? Or did you just throw it all to the wind? Or did you keep doing your other jobs while you made art? Like when was the flip?
Yeah, no, I still kept going with that job and onto other jobs as well. But that was the point that I realized that, because I've always wanted to be an artist and a musician. Those are two things that like I love. They're my passions. And whether I was making a living off it or making nothing at all, I'd still be doing it no matter what. Yeah. But it's at that point that I realized that there is the possibility to make money from this and actually make a living and support myself, which was a real kind of confidence boost for me, because I didn't know that. I'd heard it and I knew you could do it, but until you actually start doing it, you don't believe it.
Until someone starts buying your work, like it feels like it might, like you always have that feeling like no one's ever going to buy my work. It feels far away until it's not.
Exactly. And it's one of those, there's also the turning point of when you start out, you rely on like family and friends to support you, and they might buy like a print or something like that. And you're like, oh, thank you so much. You'd be doing this, right. Whatever. It's when you start having strangers and randomers wanting to buy your work. You're like, oh, this feels amazing.
Yeah, there's no better feeling. So that's actually a nice segue in terms of prints. So let's talk like the product and revenue side, which is obviously you make full like canvas works.
Yes, that's the main thing. Yeah.
What other? Obviously, that's the main thing. But do you have other verticals, if you will? Do you do prints? Like I saw something on your website about sculpt kits, which I want to ask about. What are the side hustles, or even within the art? Like people have multiple revenue streams. Have you found that you have multiple revenue streams, and do you find that any of them are actually worth pursuing?
It's a tricky question. So yes, in answer, I do prints. I have a couple of prints out there now. I don't know, I've never been like that in love with prints, purely because for me, my work is about the originality of it, and that there is one. And with an original work, you can see the textures and you can follow the brush marks. I think you do get that to an extent with a print, but some of it is lost. But the reason I do prints is because I just want to make my work affordable to anybody, really. I don't want to kind of price people out, basically. So yeah, I mean, I've done a few different prints, and they're not, I don't know, in the past I've done one for £65. Now they're 85 to 120, something around that. Okay. So not crazy money. It's affordable.
Are they? I assume they're limited editions or open editions?
Limited, always. Yeah, I'd never do like more than 100. That's the highest edition I've done. I think after that, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not famous enough to do more than that, I don't think. I'll just have them sitting in my studio for years otherwise.
Did you play with NFTs or anything like that at all? Or did you get into that craze or you just skipped it?
Everybody always asks me about this.
I
still now even get like texts from friends who are not artists, and they're like, Marcus, have you heard about NFTs? You should totally do this. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard about NFTs, man. Oh. Yeah, I did hear about NFTs years ago now. And actually it was a collector of mine who's a young guy, really nice, and we've become friends. And he texted me and was like, look, you've got to get on this. He started doing it, and he said he was creating the NFTs based on other abstract artists' work as well as mine, and he was making loads of money. And I was like, okay, that sounds really interesting and tempting. I went through the whole rigmarole of setting it up, creating the NFTs, had it all ready to go, and then I was like, no, I didn't do it. Yeah, I don't know. They exist, they're out there, but I've never told or put it out there and told anyone that I'm doing them, because I just don't know how I feel about them.
Something that might make them that much more valuable one day as people like struggle to find them and figure that out, and that they live out there in the ether. Don't worry, you'll have another bite at that apple.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know.
Time around,
Yeah.
I think artists will take advantage the second time around. Like true, like real producing artists will take will win the next time. Did you ever go back to making sculptures or?
No, but it's something I keep thinking about, and I have it on my to-do list, and it's been there for a few years actually. But there is like a sculptural kind of element in my works.
Yeah,
I
was going to say that,
and that's where it started actually. So I keep wanting to do it. It's just finding the time and the space where I have the freedom to do that, because it's something that is a risk, and I'm not going to be making money from it necessarily. It's purely just a passion project because I want to do it. And also it's a whole different studio setup, which is going to get messy in a different sort of way.
Yeah. Do you produce a lot of work, or like how many pieces a year do you produce on average? Is it relatively?
Good question. Yeah, I do. I'm quite a prolific producer, I would say. I don't know how many I produce in a year. It's hard to say, because I think I produce work in projects and series. So if I have a show coming up or something like that, I will like just work flat out for a month or two on this series. But then, yeah, I do make time to just make work for making work's sake. And that's the best time, because you've got no pressures or like expectations. You're just creating stuff and experimenting, having fun, which is like ultimately what, for me, the best thing about making art is.
You said that you get ready for shows. I've noticed that you've done like a zillion shows. So do you have, so let's like take a turn in terms of, where do you sell most of your art? Is it like via gallery? Is it through online galleries? Is it via Instagram? Is it via Art Advisor? What was the path to sell art, and where do you find most of that inbound traffic coming from?
It's changed. It has changed, what I imagine anyway. I know it has. I can just see it, and speaking to friends where those selling points have been over time. So initially when I started out, it was very much relying on being in a space, in a gallery, or like at an art, and relying on other people to help me sell those things. And on the other end of that, a good example, which I'm sure like most other artists during the COVID kind of lockdown thing, I used to sell through Instagram fairly well, but then during the lockdown, that like Instagram blew up for me, and I was selling every piece that I posted. I would sell the same day. Really? It was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, and more, because people would say, oh, it's not available, and then I'd send them my available price list, and then they would buy something off that. I was going into the lockdown, I was really nervous, because before that I was reliant on physical in-person shows to sell my work. And then off the back of that, I had no idea what was going to happen. But then, yeah, it was by far my most profitable year.
So it's funny. So the idea of, and so many artists, just because we're in this transition where to be in the quote unquote art world, you used to have like that representation and had to have that. Now, like you can own and so you can control like obviously it's much, much better margin, right? You don't have to give the gallery half.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so that's one of the areas that I'm really curious about, is like how, like, it sounds like you just hit it where like your Instagram just like the images were right.
Yeah.
They were beautiful. People connected with them, and it just created this like amazing little flywheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever do like advertising, or just posted content?
At that time, no. My Instagram page at that time was growing very quickly. It's doing all the things that people complain about Instagram now not doing. And it in a way, it changed my life. And yeah, it made me think, wow, I can actually make a really good, decent living off this. And it was great because I was connecting with lots of other artists as well, having great conversations, and then going on to meet them up in real life as well as like just online. And also meeting collectors who I'm still in touch with now. And from time to time, they'll come back to me and they'll buy other works. So yeah, it was a really, really good time to learn a lot about what it is to run your own business, and most importantly, make strong relationships.
Hold on, I lost you there.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I lost you
for
me?
1 second.
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. All right.
Do you how much time were you spending making art versus all the things to sell the art that you're making? What is your time split like? Is 50% art? Is it like 20% art? Is it like...
Yeah, it depends. It depends at what time in the year you ask me that question.
Okay.
I'd love to say it's like a 50-50 split, but realistically, it's probably like 20-30% of the time I'm making the actual art. And the rest of the time is creating the content, photographing it, putting together newsletters, emailing people about projects, or all the other stuff that comes with being an artist.
Yeah, putting together an email list is one of the things that most people neglect and forget, and is probably the most important thing for artists because it's direct to your customer. Yeah.
Do you know what? I like many, I don't need to do that. I've got a great Instagram account. Like, how wrong was I? So I actually came to it late. I only started doing it, I think, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I should have a lot more kind of subscribers than I do. But I'm saying that I've still got a good amount, and it's building nicely now.
And how often do you do your newsletter?
It's very sporadic. I actually sent one today, but usually I send 1 or 2 a month or something like. Okay. It's basically just like news on what I'm doing. I also offer, like, everyone who's subscribed on my newsletter, they usually find out about stuff first, and they usually get like offers on things on my work as well.
Super.
At certain times. So there is like a point of being subscribed. So that you get something
some preferential, some financial benefit as well as some availability benefit.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I appreciate these people have taken the time and interest to sign up. So I want to give them something back for
for sure.
It's the least. Yeah.
Do you use like third-party art sites? I saw you were Saatchi Art, 20 artists to watch or something like that. Did that come organically? And was that like a boost to was that like helpful, or was that like something like you worked to get? And following that question, do you use other sites as well, or just Saatchi?
So yeah, I don't actually use Saatchi Art anymore. I have like art listed on there, but most of those pieces have sold now.
Okay.
Some on that platform actually. I think Saatchi Art is a great platform actually. But yeah, I sell on like there. There's a few other like Singular as well.
Yeah.
And then and then a few other kind of like UK based companies as well. I mostly kind of stick with UK based companies because I know them, I've met them personally, and I think those kind of things are better when you have an actual relationship as opposed to like just over email. So yeah, I don't know. I probably wouldn't sign up to any more now that I have a few. I've started deleting a few of the accounts as well because I just didn't sell through them much, and I was like, oh, why am I even on here kind of thing. It's just extra admin for me. So I want to try and become more self-sufficient as time comes on, to be honest. It goes on.
Now, do you have like a team or a manager, like people below you or people above you, studio assistants? Like, have you started to scale up in any direction, or is it just still completely a one-man show?
Yeah, no, I've got 9 people. No, of course not. I would love to say I have a team. It's me. That's it. I am the team. I do occasionally like get help from people, but usually it's just like friends. If I've got like a big project coming up, I need help packing and stuff like that. But no, it's just me.
So you're the shipping department, you're the painting department, you're the social media department, you're the marketing department.
Yes. All of those things, but I like it. It's good. It's nice because you learn everything it is, what it takes to run a business. And I think people get a personal kind of service with that. And you know exactly what's happening in your business. There's no kind of like anything lost within that. But yeah, at times, of course, I would love to have someone who could do all the stuff, like the admin-y stuff that I don't want to do.
Oh, yeah, it comes.
Yeah.
Do you do commissions, by the way, or do you just do the work you do?
Yeah, no, I do commissions. At one point, I think last year, I was doing mostly only commissions.
Wow.
Which was good. It depends. So the biggest works that I've created, I think one was 2.8 meters. There was 2.8 meter high canvases that I did as a commission, which I sent to the US. That was a great project. I really enjoyed working that bigger scale. And I usually only create works that size on commission because, you know, it's expensive buying
Cost.
those canvases and all the materials that you've got to use. So commissions usually only allow for those kind of projects. But yeah, it's a mixture really.
And you charge a higher price point for those because you're going out of your natural production schedule?
Not too much really. Like I tend to I have set size prices for different sizes. And I feel like if someone, I wouldn't charge that much more really. If there is something quite specific, obviously there's the shipping to like take into consideration and stuff like that. And if there's like a lot of pre-chat over email and a lot of back and forth and they want tests and stuff like that, I will charge a bit extra on that because that's my time.
Sure.
Yeah, but no, not really. I don't add a premium on it.
And what are your best channels in terms of distribution? Do you sell more of your work direct? Do you sell more through galleries? Do you sell more through like online channels? More through social channels, which is direct to the website? How does yours break out? And do you decide to put like effort, time, and money behind one of those as they grow, or you just throw it all on the wall and pray for the best?
It changes at different points. So obviously during lockdown, like all of my sales were through Instagram. I was dealing with everything myself. Now we're out of lockdown, and now that Instagram has changed the algorithm, which has been a bit of a really annoying thing. I'm sure you can feel that for yourself. Like everyone I know I get half the interaction that I did before because people just don't see my posts. Really annoying. But yeah, so that used to be the case, but nowadays I'm more reliant, again, going back to where I started, on galleries and art consultancies that I work with, as well as art galleries taking me to art fairs and stuff like that to sell my work.
Now, how did you go about getting those relationships and or maintaining those? Like for the average artist, like myself included, how did you get into your first galleries, and how do you approach new galleries? And is it only London based, or do you have different galleries in different markets? Like, how do you approach that?
So initially, I think like most, I was just like writing to or sending a DM to various different galleries, and I was approaching them. But I wouldn't recommend that actually. I always think the better relationships are when people come to you because they like your work. End of the day, no one's going to sign you up to their gallery if they don't like your work. Some do if like they're like a famous artist or whatever, because they know through that like fame, they're not an artist, just someone famous who happens to do art. They know through that fame they're going to make sales. But all of the relationships I have now, all of them have contacted me to get me on board, and I think that's definitely the way forward. But having said that, I think when you're starting out, you do need to hustle. You do need to ask people, and you do need to do that and work your way up. Like a lot of the interviews were early on when I was just starting out. I asked for those people. I said, hey, love what you're doing. Do you want to interview me? And I think you just need to not to worry about it and feel embarrassed about it. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm an artist. I want my name out there and I want people to know about me. So what have I got to do? So you speak to people, and most of the time you'll get 90% no's, but there's 10%, and that might help you get up in the game.
And I always find it's even one more than that. It's like that person that you pitch or do whatever might not be the one, but they might remember you 3 months from now and then be like, oh, you should talk to this artist for this project, or you should. The network of people grows and expand. Like the more, like, putting yourself out there never hurt anybody. Like maybe your ego a little bit, but like talking to more people about your work just means more people talk about you and your work.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely a right and a wrong way to go about it. I think like you can always, for me, I've always approached it with like friendliness and openness. Like I will always, if I genuinely will need to like a page or like a gallery, if I want to make an interaction or send them a message about trying to become like part of what they're doing. And I'll tell them like, I really like them, but if they don't like what I'm doing, that's absolutely fine. I'll still be following you. either way because I enjoy your content. That's my approach to the thing.
So you really just reach out and say, hey, I love your stuff. And that interaction gets a bunch of eyeballs on your work, and the rest is magic because your work speaks for itself.
Yeah, exactly. You can't force someone to like your work. If they like it, if they don't, fine, no problem. I'll move on to the next one. But it's okay. But it's just going about it in the right way. But nowadays, luckily, and it's really nice that people seem to be like, they're coming to me. I've stopped reaching out so much now, which happens organically. Like you've got to put the effort in initially, early days.
Yeah, I used to be and before I was an artist, I was in the hospitality business, and I used to own fancy nightclubs and in a different lifetime. And I always used to tell people that, like, I knew when I had a hit because my phone would just ring. Like, I would hang up and it would ring. I would hang up, it would ring. The second I had to start calling people, I knew it was time to close. It was over.
Yeah.
Like, that was the signal, like the inbound, outbound. If you can get people like knocking on your door, like that's usually a telltale sign that you're doing something correctly.
Yeah, totally.
I see that you also have done, which I don't think some artists do, but you seem to do a lot of like interesting collabs. Can you give me like a little background and how you stumbled into that and how those have worked for you?
Yeah. Again, it's organically, but yeah, I love doing them. I've recently, like yesterday, another one, which I think you mentioned earlier, just launched, which is the Sculpt Art Kit, which I was advising on. And I'm also like the coach and the guide in the kit. But yeah,
I didn't know if that was like a full side hustle on your own, or if it was like somebody else put it together and you're like an add-on. It was super cool.
No. It's one of the, it's not, I think other artists might look at it and be like, oh, that's not very cool, which fine, whatever. But for me, I think art should be accessible, and it enables that for a good price point for someone who has no idea about painting to buy this kit and have a go. Try it.
Give a quick example of what it is so people know what we're talking about.
So basically, it's an abstract art kit for if you are a painter or not, or if you're just a beginner and you always fancy to go, but it's everything that you'd need to start. And it's like they've also created the first ever collapsible canvas, which was really cool because I was the first artist ever to use it. And yeah, it's an art kit, and I'm like through the guide, run you through all the different working up like little mock-ups before you go onto the big canvas and all these different kind of tips and methods. So yeah, it was a really nice project to be part of. It's
interesting. I've talked to a bunch of artists who like realize that their skill set can actually be like put into like class format. And one artist I spoke to a couple weeks ago basically has sold like over 1,000 classes of like people looking. He was does like pottery and sculpture, but the idea that there are these secondary and tertiary businesses that don't require a ton of your time, just like some of your knowledge and experience, I think is really, I think more artists need to look like it. Just it can add like a nice, quiet, steady cash flow without you really thinking about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's loads of like art. I constantly getting on my Instagram feed because I'm an artist, like all of these art classes advertise me. I'm like, I don't need that. But yeah, I see so many artists doing it and running these sessions, and I'm like, great, like awesome. I think there's loads of people who are interested in doing those sorts of things.
Yeah, especially if you like connect with somebody's work, like if that person can be your teacher, it like becomes awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, I thought the kit was super cool.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I think it should be amazing advertisement for me because I think they said that their first order, so they sell globally, is 10,000 kits. So that's 10,000 people who are going to see me and hopefully follow me. So we'll see how that works out for me. Let's see.
I love these. I think that it's funny because sometimes you'll take one of these outside of your domain expertise and that turns into such a cash driver. You're like, oh my God. Yeah. It doesn't cost like it's like software. It just repeats you have to do it once and then it throws itself out there.
Passive income, isn't it?
Yeah. The true passive income. I've yet to see true passive income, but it's cool.
Same. That would be nice. But yeah. It's just another thing. And I always like to do projects that are different to what I do day to day. So this was one of them and it was fun.
There was another cool one for Coat. What was that?
Yeah, that was 1 month ago or something like that. So that's as a paint company, they use these high quality sustainable paints and they commissioned me we rented this really cool warehouse space and they commissioned me to paint a large scale canvas purely using their paints. So it's just to showcase like the qualities of the paints and what you can do with the color schemes. And we also did a print together. So yeah.
Do you get sponsored? Do you get like free paint now? Does it take They
did give me a lot of free paint, so I've got loads of it, and I'm using it. It's amazing paint actually, because I think it's actually pretty expensive stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure if I asked for some more paints, I'm sure they would be willing. Yeah.
And so that actually brings me an interesting question. So as an artist, like, where do you spend most of your money? Like, where do you find that you're pushing your dollars towards? Is it mostly towards supplies and materials? Is it like marketing stuff? Is it like, what does that look like from a...
Yeah, no, it's definitely materials. I'm lucky in the fact that I don't have normal like studio space costs, because my studio is a converted loft in my house. So that comes along with my mortgage and all that stuff. So yeah, I would say it's materials. I'm constantly buying paint, and I use a lot of paint, and thickly. If you've ever watched any of my videos, you can see that I basically throw it onto the canvas. I use it liberally.
Yes, well, that's why sponsorships are a wonderful, amazing thing.
Yeah.
My question, that actually brings me back to some social stuff. Are you only Instagram, or have you branched out into TikTok or YouTube or like any of these other platforms? Or are you just a Instagram down the middle kind of guy?
Yeah, Instagram is definitely the main thing for me. I am on TikTok, but I haven't actually told like anybody that I'm on TikTok on my Instagram yet. I've been doing it in the background for a year or so now, just because purely because I can see the growth in it, and I can see there's still not many artists on TikTok.
Not like artists. There's like a lot of schlock artists, but there's not a lot of I don't think there's a lot of gallery represented artists knocking it out on TikTok.
No, I would say there's like practically none on there. So I'm not like putting a lot of effort into it, and I am posting on there basically every time I do a reel that goes into TikTok. So I want to try and keep that up, because I can see the growth on it, and I don't want to do what I did with Instagram and come to it late and miss out of like being, because you hate myself. Yeah, exactly. Everyone does. So I'm trying to keep on top of that.
Have you gotten good uptick on it? Because it like, the nice thing about TikTok I find is that it takes one or two videos, and all of a sudden you go from like 0 to 100,000 people in a week or something. Like, it doesn't take much to. It takes one or two great pieces of content to change your trajectory completely.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like hit the nail on the head with it. Okay. I think of the most views I've got. I had one video with like 17 or 18,000 views, but that's the most. Okay. But like Instagram, I've had one of my videos is over 100,000, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. But yeah,
I just had one a couple of weeks ago, and it was one of my least impressive videos ever. It hit 1.2 million views.
You're joking.
No, wow. I literally increased my followers by 50%. I got more views, likes, and things than every other post I've ever had combined.
Yeah, that's what it takes. It's one of those things. But yeah, it's great. Good for you, man.
But just and I'm trying to repeat it over, like it's back to 1,000 views, 500 views, whatever it is. I just started a new TikTok account. That one, I don't even think I've broken 1,000 yet. So just think with all this stuff, like social, it's a matter of consistency. It's like everything. Yeah. If you're consistent and thorough and do it day in and day out, like eventually it pays for itself and then some.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going back a little bit on your career, what do you think? Did you have any like huge mistakes that you're like, I wish I didn't do that, or like a direction that you like you look back and you kick yourself over?
God, that's a good question, because I'm sure there's probably a lot of things that
I have hundreds.
I wouldn't repeat. Can't think of anything like big in particular. I don't know. I say that, but at the same time, I think that for me, I only really learn from my mistakes. I'm trying to think. Mostly with these things, you think of like social media, because that's like how everybody sees everything.
I've always found my. Go ahead.
I think one of the things I guess is like doing work for free. Like I did quite a lot of that stuff where people will be like, hey, can you just do this thing? And it'll be great exposure. Always when someone says that to you, it'll be worth it for your time and your exposure or whatever. And I just think, yeah, all the times which I did earlier. Yeah, and it's like, you go on to, so great, I've got two followers, and I put a couple of days work at least into that for nothing. It's like that. And then also, I think back in the day, I did a couple of, I get emails, I'm sure you do as well, all artists do, from like magazines saying, oh, do you want to be in the magazine? It only costs this much and you'll go out to sim sort of thing. And I did a couple of those, and obviously nothing came from it. And I was like, why the hell did I spend the money doing that? Such a waste of time. And yeah, I learned my lesson that way, and I won't do it again.
Yeah, but by the way, it's all this stuff is pattern recognition, right? You touch the hot stove once, you're like, okay, they got me.
Yeah, yeah.
You try not to do it again and get sucked in.
Yeah.
The opposite of that, the biggest mistake. What do you think? Do you have a greatest achievement? Do you have something that you're like super proud of, or a piece of work or content or a business choice you made that you're like, this completely changed the trajectory of my life?
Yeah, I think for me, my favorite project, and the one which kind of made me step back and then look at what I'd achieved, was probably I did a collaboration with Farah, which is a jeans, like a jeans company, but they launched in Japan and they launched it with me. So we did this whole film. It was like good pay, and they basically gave me full creative control, which as an artist is like the dream project. And I got my friends to film the whole thing. They got paid by them as well. But the best part of it was that at the end of it, the end product was they made this film, and the jeans that I was wearing, all the paint splatters, got reproduced as a limited edition to be sold in Japan. But the best part of it was that I was getting tagged in all these posts from these people in Japan buying my jeans with my name in the back of it. And I was like, this is crazy. These people are literally on the other side of the world and like buying a product that I'm part of with my name in the back of their trousers. That blew my mind, and I was like, the world's amazing.
Yeah, and it's talk about what that does, like just for brand recognition, just for spreading it out there, and the fact that these projects keep finding you, and like the variability of them, which is like from a paint, like that. If nothing else, that really probably speaks to the quality and look of the art, is that so many people want to be associated with it on a brand level, which is super cool.
Yeah, no, I feel very fortunate for that these collaborations and different like really interesting projects keep coming my way. And yeah, they're so exciting to be part of, and I love doing them. Do you think that they feed on each other? Do you think these people see that you do collabs and therefore they call you to do collabs? Or do you think that it's more... Yeah. So definitely, I think it's about confidence. If a company sees that you've done something and that you can do it and you can do it well, it gives them confidence that I'm the right guy for the job. If I'd never done something, they're taking a risk. It's like with any business. You want some sort of proof in the pudding before you invest.
That's absolutely brilliant. It's at the end of the day, it's all about confidence. It's like knowing you're the shit. Yeah. That's awesome. So we're coming up to the end of the hour. Do you have anything upcoming do you have shows, other collaborations? Do you have other things that are coming down the pike that you want people to know about? Mind you, this probably has a month to 6 week delay. So if it's somewhat in the future, that's probably okay before this hits the actual internet.
Okay. That's good, actually, because there is a big project coming up for me before the end of the year, which is still in discussion now, but I'm very excited about it. I can't give details, but basically, I think you're based in Miami, right?
Correct, sir.
Yeah, so I should be coming to Miami in December, and I'm going to be doing a project as part of Art. So that is December. So it depends when this comes out. Hopefully I will be able to talk about it by that point. I don't know. But yeah, I'm very excited for that. Really excited.
So I'm very excited to see what you have in my hometown. I like it.
Yeah. So maybe me, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
In real life. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Where can people find you?
Instagram's the easiest, quickest way, I would say, and probably the most interesting, because that's where all of like my news and content is. But yeah, I have a website as well, which is marcusaitken.com. TikTok, if you do that, that's pretty much it. Or just type my name into Google.
What's your TikTok handle? That will now let the world know that you have a secret TikTok handle.
It's going to happen. It's Marcus Aitken Art.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. Everybody go to TikTok. It's the wave of the future. Anyhow, super interesting. Always love to hear how artists have navigated and found and being able to work and operate and build a career as a full-time artist. Thank you for sharing these insights and these details. Super excited to keep watching your journey. And now that I know you're coming to my town, I'm even more excited to see what you come up with.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. It's been really nice to speak to you.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, and hold on, you still there? Yeah, I got
I'm
you.
still here. Yeah.
Okay, so basically what I do, hold on.